Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Balcony Brew Review. Today is June 29th, 2020. We're still in the COVID-19 pandemic, but in stage 4 here in the state of Illinois. That is not the case for a lot of other states, which have actually gone backwards since March. We are also in the midst of a very much a cultural change as the Black Lives Matter movement continues to build up steam as it has since the end of last month and the death of George Floyd, and remains top of mind for everybody from culture to politics and to the world of sports. I am Larry Hawley, and as always, joined by Paul M. Banks. Paul, say hello.
Hey, how's it going? Happy Canada Day Eve.
Interesting. No, I forgot about that. So I kind of get overly focused on the 4th of July because for me, that's a major landmark in the summer. I'm a big fan of fall, so I kind of consider peak summer there for about the next month. It also means that fall's not terribly far away. And despite a interesting 2020, which I think would be an optimistic way to look at it, I still get fired up for the fall. Optimistic, interesting is optimistic, but I consider that a very optimistic thought. Paul, what's new? What's going on?
Yeah, probably more optimism than I do, but I'm with you in that fall is definitely my favorite season, but I don't have a lot of optimism for football, and that's something that kind of defines fall in my world. But you know what? I'm just happy that the pool has been open for a week and a half now, and if it's not raining, I go pretty much every day.
It's only raining White Claw, as I noticed the one time I made a magical visit to the rooftop pool located in the Gold Coast.
Yes, it's funny that people are talking about defunding the police because with White Claws, there are no laws.
There are no laws. And if I'm not mistaken, Paul, and I actually had to respond to it, I was a little bit busy this morning, and frankly, I had a crappy night of sleep. I saw that you were tweeting that apparently Nisei Lounge sold more White Claw than they did beer. Have I got
Yeah,
this tweet right?
yeah, like when I saw that, I tagged you and Travis, so both of my podcast co-hosts, and I do think that maybe the next time we record, we should have him so we could do like the Jetsons meet the Flintstones kind of thing, the crossover thing. But yeah, I was taken aback by only one day that's happened, and Nisei Lounge is so like I was so stunned by that. I'm like, that doesn't happen all the time in summer.
Yeah, I'm surprised because White Claw is a good drink to have when it's really warm out. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I'm all for beer and I enjoy beer in the summer, but I also enjoy White Claw, although I more enjoy margaritas, which is my guilty pleasure. About every 2 to 3 weeks on a hot day, I'll go ahead and usually I get the premix bottle. Sometimes I'll make frozen margaritas, which I actually prefer, but are a little bit more messy and are just longer to make. And I get lazy when it comes to creation of food or drink. So that tends to work out here and there. But I'm not surprised. I think White Claw really is something, I mean, it's everywhere and people really seem to enjoy it. It's light. So I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if White Claws sold pretty heavily over beer in a lot of places.
I see people bring White Claws in the water with them in my pool. Um, there's a couple guys I know in the building that just always have coolers of it. I mean, I'm not drinking tonight for the show, but next time I've got Barefoots, I've got Trulies, I've got some White Claws in the fridge, and we can kind of get into that more in the next episode. Maybe we do like a little kind of tasting with that if you want to pick some up, and we can kind of
Yeah, I'll
discuss
go ahead and
that.
do that. I'd like to do that. I wouldn't mind a good White Claw tasting. I wonder if they can. I wonder if they'll ever put it into a keg. Can you do that? I'm not the physics of it. I don't know. Do you put that in a keg? I mean, can that be done? I assume it could be done in some form or fashion, or is that some sort of like soda fountain or pressure thing? I guess my knowledge of that stuff is a little bit low. I'll be happy to admit.
Well, when we first launched this podcast, at our original conception and our distribution with our network and everything, I had circled the date, May 9th, Union Station, the Hard Seltzer Festival. and I was like, oh my God, would we get this show going in April? Our original target and what it was going to be. I'm like, I could go to that and review it. And, well, I guess we'll just have to see what 2021 has to have in store. But Bon and Viv is the one. Remember last summer I went to go see Poi Dog Pondering in Aurora, and they had that venue that's on the river right there, that outdoor music venue had Bon and Viv on tap. The Cell has a, I think Wrigley does too. I don't know if it's really a keg though, or if it is just like a soda fountain, as you put it.
Yeah, it may be a soda fountain thing. Um, well, we'll see. One of the great mysteries of 2020. Paul, that thing you brew, what do you have for us this week?
I've got an interesting one, and this is definitely a debate point. I did get a Twitter reply that told me I was completely full of it and this was a stupid idea. And I knew this was coming because I know that Elvis Presley's fans, like, I know he is a demigod, but for years I've thought of the analogy between Elvis and Britney Spears. I see them as very similar. And when she came out over the weekend and gave an update on this gym that she burned down, it reminded me of when Elvis would shoot his own televisions. And I'm not I am saying Elvis is the superior musician, but I think both of them are kind of overrated. Both of them were in the right place at the right time, had the right medium, had the right publicist, the right agent. They're almost from the same state. I mean, Brittany's from about a 5-minute drive from the Mississippi border. Both have struggled with weight loss, pills, controlled substances. Really, the Vegas thing, they both set up residency there. And I'm like, I don't know. I see it, and I'm sure other people don't. So you tell me what you think.
It's interesting. I wouldn't put them two together. I give you credit for finding that association because that would have not crossed my mind. Like I think of Elvis as an icon and of rock, and I think of him as somebody who introduced rock and roll to the mainstream, doing so first as a very much a rebel in the late 1950s, then kind of becoming, I guess, I don't know if journeyman's the right way, but he went to Las Vegas. I believe he was at the Vegas Hilton, which is now the Westgate. I think that's where he set up residency, but I can't
Yes,
be
that's
100% sure. Interesting association to make there. Certainly, there are some, they're both artists who were captivating at the time. I think Britney, in some ways, was innovative. I think in some ways she was kind of a revolution of the female pop star, this new kind of female pop star that popped up right around the millennium. It's amazing to think of it, Paul. If I believe Hit Me Baby One More Time, 21 years old now. Was that a 99 debut? I want to say,
that was spring of my junior year, which would have been your freshman year.
yep. I still remember hearing it for the first time and wow, who's Britney Spears? And it was just this incredible thing. I remember being in my dorm room in Oglesby and on the 8th floor and hearing that music and give me a sign, hit me, baby, one more time. Fundamentally wonderful song. She's got some really good songs. That fundamentally is a really good song. You can play it right now, and it's catchy.
Yeah, it
Uh,
holds up. There's like a few I like um Toxic, Womanizer. She's
mm-hmm.
got a couple songs, Give Me More, that hold up well.
That's
Just like
mm-hmm.
I just don't I don't know. I think both are serviceable and they're okay. Um I don't know. I would say Britney, I think she's a little overrated in terms of, but maybe not because now she doesn't have the same status she used to. I think Elvis has a lot of great songs. I mean, Suspicious Minds and It's Now or Never hold up well. But I mean, obviously he's immortal. He's on a different plane. And I guess I left out the biggest commonality is they both pushed the envelope and they both used sex. appeal to get ahead, and both were like considered shocking in the way they did it when they
I mean,
started out for their time.
that's a very good point. I think there's no doubt that that definitely is part of it. Is the sex appeal, the shock value really applies to both of them. Another good song is "Circus" by Britney Spears. That I thought
Yeah,
was a
that is
really
a
good
good one.
song. Yeah, she has a lot of good hits. I mean, is she on the Elvis levels part hits? No, I mean Elvis is a you know if there's a
30 number
Rushmore,
ones, I believe.
yeah, if you're looking at a Rushmore for American musicians, he's probably on it. I would think so. I could get debate. I don't consider myself the foremost of music in any way, shape, or form. I would think that Elvis is on that platform. I would think he's on that Rushmore of artists. I would be very shocked if he was not. So like I said, it'd be pretty surprising. But I like the comparison. I like it. It's interesting.
Well, the whole thing is on the sportsbank.net. It's about 1,400 words long, so I back up my points. It got 200 page views, and only one person's angry at me and says it's bad, so I guess that's a good sign,
Yeah,
right?
that ratio's pretty good. Paul, for my selection, I'm doing it a little bit about the the kind of evil and the kind of happy mind division. You know how you would see it in different shows? There'd be like the angel and the devil on one side of your head.
Oh,
And
yeah.
for me, it's concerning sports in 2020. It's concerning sports in 2020. So let's go back to when the Major League Baseball season was set. They did finally set a schedule. It was held to finally set the schedule. It was 3 weeks that I fear may bring another work stoppage after about nearly 30 years of labor peace. It's a shame that that might go away. Part of me was really excited. Like we might have baseball. Teams are going to play. Yes, it's going to be 60 games, but we're going to have baseball. Maybe we'll get a chance to have 5 or 6 thousand fans at Wrigley or Guaranteed Rate Field. Maybe I get to go to 1 or 2 games this year. Maybe I get a chance to enjoy some ballpark food, which I love. Maybe even more than a ballpark beer. In fact, no, I'll say it very bluntly. I like ballpark food much more than a ballpark beer. Definitely for me. I'm really
Sure.
excited.
Definitely agree with that.
Then the devil of it. Wait a minute. Are we really playing baseball right now? Are we really going to do this? Are we really going to play during a pandemic? Are we really going to agree when there were 5 members of the Phillies who test positive? Are we really going to do it while we have a very interesting cultural time? Is it safe to bring ball players back? Is it safe to have any fans in the stands? Is it safe to even think about baseball when we're seeing states shut down? On the day we're recording this, Arizona kind of put the brakes on their nightclubs, their movie theaters, their bars, because they've had COVID skyrocket again. I was thinking about football, how much I enjoy college football or the NFL, how fun it would be to see them on the field. Then you get to the point where you see, I think Clemson was somewhere in the 40s with their tests. I think other people were having
Wow.
COVID tests. Clemson was high. I don't know if I may have gotten to 40. They were pretty high up as far as the total goes. It might have. I know it's in the 30s, but I thought it may have risen to the 40s.
I know Kansas State was double figures, and that seemed high.
So especially as an Illini fan, Illinois actually had a great, good season in 2019. Looking ahead to 2020, how optimistic would it be to have college football? But at the same point, can you risk it? Do you risk another coronavirus wave coming in the fall, assuming we get through the first wave? It's very interesting to see these two sides to the debate. I even put out my little TikTok video on it's okay to have a little bit of a divided mind when you see these sports come up. And I haven't even mentioned the NBA or the NHL yet. You're seeing players opt out of there. What if there's an outbreak in Orlando? What if there's an outbreak in the hub cities that the NHL is still yet to determine? I'm divided. There is part of my head that says maybe sports shouldn't return in 2020. Yet there's the excitement of having sports back and some of the economic realities that some of these sports should probably try to make some attempt to come back. very much a headspace debate. I don't know what your thought is on this, Paul, because I know it's been interesting for me.
Well, there's definitely um, the F. Scott Fitzgerald quote that the true mark of an intellectual is to hold two opposing thoughts in the head at the same time and not go crazy. And I totally butchered it, and I don't know, but
It's
that's
fun.
the idea, Or Nietzsche said, "The thinking man has no need for reputation, for that within he suffices within himself." I mean that if I think we get caught up in a world of number one, conflict drives so much of the narrative everywhere, especially in news, especially in media, and that means in order to have that conflict, you need to have the diametrically opposed sides. So a lot of people fall into just one lane and then staying in it when reality is lots of shades of gray and conflict. And I don't know. I don't think it's a really good idea for sports to come back as much as I wanted to. And although we've seen, Europe make it work somewhat, this country's different. This country, I mean, if you've got people who think that wearing a mask is a bad idea, or even the idea that wearing a mask should be up for debate, then you're gonna have problems. I mean, I did read a really good piece on the same Sports Illustrated website that I write for by a writer named Cliff Corcoran, and he made a lot of great points. And I believe 14 of the 30 MLB teams are in states that are now where it's on the upswing. And you mentioned Arizona, Texas, Florida is going to be a problem. It's MLS and the NBA's hub. Florida's doing bad. And we're just talking about trying to get it off the ground,
Mhm.
because if these guys start, if once we get going and then you've got a rash of positive tests, then we're all going backwards, and then what was it all for?
Yeah, and I think there could be two attitudes to it. It could be we have a lot of positive tests. We're just shutting this thing down. We're gonna put a ball in the bag, and we're gonna go home. We'll see you in 2021. Or it could be the attitude, and I think the NFL could do this. It's see it through, and we will trudge our way through whatever this is, and we will get to the end, and we will crown a champion, come hell or high water. I'm kind of thinking that that's kind of could be the two options. I think it could be where, maybe Major League Baseball says see it through. If they start, people get sick, they bring people up from the squads, and that's just how they do it. I I don't know. I think it's very weird. I have been very conflicted. I wouldn't say I'm going crazy about that. It's not going crazy. It's just thinking, okay, how do you balance this and that? And it's very much kind of a guessing game at this point. Obviously, the leagues are going to go forward. I just am curious, what attitude will they take? Will they take it where if things are not going well, they're just going to shut it down? Or is it going to be a see it through and we're going to trudge all the way through and we will get to the end? I think the latter could end up being what it will be for some. We'll just have to see. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be creative, or hopefully not destructive. Like I said, it's going to be a lot. Paul, Island of Misfit Toys. What do you have for us tonight?
I have etymology about new buzzwords, new words, new catchphrases, and how they just take off and then get overused. And two really stand out to me. I would say 3, 4 months ago, not a lot of people was using the term stands. That's obviously a direct reference to the Eminem song from 2000 about an obsessed fan, and now it's everybody just uses stands instead of fans or enthusiasts or aficionados of supporters. And then the other word is Karen, the Karens.
Yep.
That was, I think maybe that one has been around a little bit longer. But now it's just every single day. Anytime a human being is behaving bad, that's a woman who's older or whatever, anything on social media, it's a Karen, and it's just crazy how those two words are taking off right now.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, I've heard Stan a little bit more often than Karen before. Obviously, the Karen thing has come up now because there's those masks. People go crazy having to wear a mask in grocery stores, and it's very interesting. Just the reaction that some people have to wearing a mask is insane. I think there've even been some people in the store who've offered to shop for people who didn't want to have a mask, and they still try to go in. And people really flipping out. I mean, almost to the point where I wonder if this is like some sort of theater. If people do this for some sort of theater or entertainment, but apparently a lot of them are real. But
That's what's so crazy about it, because you think about the Russian trolls and their bots and everything Russia has done to divide us. And this is like a real life version of that. It's like, let's create this wedge issue, or let's take something where there might be a little bit of divide, and let's just drive a stake in there and make the gap. I mean, there's been violence over this kind of thing.
yeah, I don't. The whole mask thing is outside's a whole thing. I usually I wear it if I'm in a crowd. If I run, I don't run with a mask, which I know that's up for debate. But inside, I think I've been wearing a face covering of some sort since about late March. I don't know about you, but anytime I went to the grocery store or went to Walgreens, I always wore a face covering. I've just done that since late March, so it's pretty much just been kind of par for the course for the last month or so. Well, actually, the last 3 months actually. But it's interesting you talk about those terms, and you kind of wonder what's next. Like, is there a male version of a Karen? I don't know if that's been established yet.
Oh, I not really. I have asked that question a couple times, and a couple different answers have been out there, but it's not really established. I think it's pretty cool that I got called a Karen by a somewhat the person who was famous in the '90s on Twitter last week.
Yes, tell us the story of Buffy.
Yes, she had made a tweet about Trump's rally in Tulsa. And for those that don't really follow her, Christy Swanson, she was the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer. In the film version with Luke Perry, was not quite as popular as the Joss Whedon created television series, in which then Sarah Michelle Gellar assumed the role and kind of took off. And she's Sarah Gellar's kind of the Buffy now, but with Christy Swanson, that's probably what she's most known. That is what she's most known for. Even though we think of her as the female lead in the greatest college football movie of all time.
Yes, and as
Um,
we know, Cain is Abel.
Kate is Abel. So I subtweeted her and said, so I guess I started it, where I said, she's like, I don't know why we make such a big deal about this indoor rally in Tulsa, and I compared it to the 1918 Liberty Loans Parade in Philadelphia, where they had this big parade to drive up sales of war bonds for World War One, and then it just spiked the curve and just overran the hospital system. To which then she subtweeted my subtweet and said, "Hey, everybody, tell this Karen what's up." And it was a way of just sticking her followers on me. And some of them were really devoted and really, I, you know, I see which there was one who basically said she went through my feed and the Twitter feed for this show, for this podcast, and her knowledge of it made it look like she must have been scrolling all the way back a couple weeks to try to have material to come after me. So you got to respect the dedication there.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna troll.
But eventually, after she eventually blocked me, and
Oh,
The
well,
troll did, not Christy
oh, the
Swanson.
troll.
Never.
There you go.
I responded back to her and I said, "You're misusing the term Karen correctly. I'm not going to the manager of the arena and complaining, and I'm not like asking the arena in Tulsa to shut this down. I'm like, no, go ahead, have your rally." So
You know, it's interesting, Paul. I don't know if you heard about it, but apparently TikTok like users like flooded. I don't know if this was confirmed or not. There's a rumor that
yes,
TikTok users flooded, so they had like what was it, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of reservations, and that's why they end up with about 6,000, I think maybe somewhere in the
yeah, they that's what they
60.
say. That's what yeah, the attendance was only 6,200.
Yeah, that's about what it looked. It looked like about 6,200. Apparently, it's amazing that TikTok like caused that. Like I love TikTok, and it's amazing that like somehow that like the users of TikTok somehow like completely threw them for a complete curve because they had like outside standing room only, I think, and they didn't even use it.
Yeah, the idea that there was going to be an overflow crowd in addition to the 19,600 seat arena, and he never even did an outdoor address. And I mean, I really think the main reason people stayed away was because of COVID, but or just interest itself is dwindling in his stand up routine. But yeah, that the TikTok teens, and it's funny that just teenagers and social media could disrupt the whole ticketing system and K-pop stands. So now we're working in the other term too.
Man, it's incredible. It's it's incredible. Paul, my choice is a little bit random. As I've been watching a lot of Netflix documentaries, I came across one that I really enjoyed, and this is going to be unusual uh, because I usually don't watch a lot of political. I mean, I try to keep myself around politics, but typically I watch a lot of documentaries not on it. But this one was a little bit unusual. And this one, I'm actually, Paul, looking for the name, but it concerns Alexandria Ocasio Cortez. And I was really interested in this documentary. I came across it on Netflix. I've been trying to really open my mind to watching all sorts of documentaries. And this one was called Knock Down the House. It was made last year, and it concerned a few candidates who were running against established candidates. There were three female candidates, who had three or four, I think it was four, that were featured in the program. That were all going up against established candidates in the primaries. And Alexandria Ocasio Cortez was the one doing so against Joe Crowley. And, he was an established Democrat. She was working in a restaurant, decided to run to raise more awareness about the issues of the working class. And I bring this up because I finished the documentary today, and I was taken aback maybe by the simple joy. A lot of things get complicated now, and it's fair. Things get complicated as things do, but the simple joy of running as a grassroots candidate or doing anything as a grassroots candidate or doing anything as an upstart and then finally achieving that victory. And it was so refreshing to me. I don't really know why, but it was so appealing to me. Maybe you go back to your youth when you're young and you don't get hit up as much or you don't get as frustrated. But it was really cool to see the enthusiasm, that fire, that positivity, that underdog fight. And the one thing I really liked about the documentary and what they did is obviously Ocasio Cortez was a massive underdog, and she kind of toward the end of the movie was kind of like, okay, well, this is wonderful. I was able to do this, and this was great. And she was with her partner at the time, just kind of hugging and saying thank you for the support. And within about like a minute and a half, they put in the sequence where she was actually winning. So she goes up to where she was having the party. Everybody is screaming. They put up the numbers where she's winning with 82% of the vote. Spectrum News' New York is waiting for her to get in there. when she notices the polls and she notices that she's winning. I believe it was 52-47, or it was like 57-42, but it was 82% of the vote, so she had it won. So like this all comes in a minute and a half, where all of a sudden she's won. All of a sudden she's won the election. Excuse me, the primary election. And it was just incredible to see the joy. For whatever reason, it really appealed to me, and it came up so fast. I really like how the filmmaker did it, where she went from it looked like an underdog who ran a ferocious campaign to all of a sudden she's a winner so quickly. I don't know what it was. It was appealing. Obviously, Ocasio-Cortez is there's supporters and adversaries on both sides who are very passionate, but just the simple part of it, the simple joy, the simple campaign, the grassroots was really refreshing and kind of joyous just to watch during the course of the documentary.
I think the appeal is in the idea of the Horatio Alger myth, the self-determination, the idea of the true American dream that you can start from anywhere and get to where you need to be. And, that aspect of her story, I would think would be universally appealing. And yeah, I'm just surprised to see that she does polarize. And, maybe if you are somebody who maybe say you don't agree with her policies, you could at least appreciate her story. And it's such a great breath of fresh air.
Mm-hmm. That's a
Just
good way to put it. Good way to put it. Go on.
Not someone who's controlled by the special interests, not someone who has to have, a big campaign war chest to run on, and just the humble roots. And yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of hers, no doubt.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I really enjoyed it, Paul. It was something very enjoyable, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. It's good. Yeah, it does kind of remind, as a kid, we do think about dreaming big and seeing how far you can go. And
Yeah,
yeah, good for her.
yeah. Enjoy it. Check it out if you want to. Again, it's knocked down the House. 4 candidates in the primaries of 2018, and Ocasio-Cortez was the only one who ended up winning. And a stunning upset, I think, from what I read and kind of reading after it. Some consider it the political upset, certainly of that election season, and probably in the last couple decades. Paul, one last sip. What do you got to finish?
I've got another throwing back to the 80s weird kind of thing picking up. The last time we talked about this, I discussed buying baseball cards from my youth. And this time the retro thing is finding old school Nintendo and even Sega Genesis and the long play feature on YouTube where it's someone else playing the game in which they have it all set up. They know how to beat the system, and you watch the game the whole way through and the ending. And I kind of came up with the idea. Well, I didn't come up with the idea. I mean, someone else has been doing this, but I first started finding interest in that when the looting was going on, and basically, and curfew came back, and it was like, if you're gonna go outside, you're walking, you're gonna do your errands, you got to get home because at night is when the trouble starts. And I'm like, that is just like Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest, in which all the bad guys become stronger, and the screen, like, that was a thing when day turns to night and everything gets worse. So
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up. Well, I haven't heard that name in a game in a while, but it's interesting. We've had those kind of lockdowns. We really never had anything quite like that, and then we had two just so close together. It was unusual.
yeah, so I watched Castlevania. From there, Ghouls and Ghosts, or Ghosts and Goblins, which was kind of the same game in a lot of ways. What was another one? Oh, Mike Tyson's Punch Out.
Oh man. Oh gosh, I remember that. I love that game. It's got it. Man, you know what? They actually made a new one. I forget which one. One of the Nintendos. They actually made a different one. It was just called Punch Out. It wasn't Mike Tyson's Punch Out, and it just didn't feel the same. It just that game just was one of those that you'll just never top. It's one of those that you'll always remember.
And then I found a really cool thing someone made on YouTube with Ivan Drago in it, and it has like your Little Mac / Rocky in it. It's like a Rocky 4 thing. I'm sure you may have saw it when there was the Mayweather Pacquiao fight. Someone did a Mike Tyson's Punch Out version of that, which was hysterical. So yeah, so that's my weird out of left field kind of thing for this week.
I think for my finish is something that I noticed on Twitter tonight. And I've been seeing a lot of people have been reposting the suicide hotline and people trying to post, asking people to post it to their timelines, asking people to post it up there. I think it's important that we not forget to watch your mental health. Paul, as you know, yesterday was the sixth anniversary of me suffering a concussion in an accident that led to a significant downturn for me for about 6 or 7 months. And I think for the one thing I always talk about it, but it's important to reinforce that how much it is for all of us to take care of your mental health during this time. And I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but it's worth noting again. You have to work on the mind, and it's so important to work on the mind during this time, and to take care of the mind, and to do what you can to make sure that you're almost going above and beyond to stay positive, because things can turn down pretty quickly. Momentum takes a long time to build, but you can lose it quickly. So it's so important, I think, having seen that tonight and having had the anniversary yesterday, it's so important to reinforce the need for everyone to kind of look in the mirror and make sure that you're doing what you can to keep your mind in the right place. And it's a tough time now. It's tough to do it. We're examining difficult topics, necessary topics. We're dealing with changes in our everyday life. And it's so important to make sure that you keep the mind above water. So I don't mean to not necessarily bring the mood down, but it's important, having seen that, to mention that to finish up this podcast. Take care of your mind, whatever you do.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people retweeting that too, and it's really important that in this time of physical health and focusing on physical health, mental health does get overlooked. And man is a social animal, and lockdown and different degrees of lockdown and everything can just create even more mental health problems, and it leads to all the social ills. And we all have got to pay attention and try to combat that, because although isolation may be what is needed to flatten the curve and fight the pandemic, isolation can then lead to a lot of free time to think about things, and then it could start a downward spiral pretty quickly.
Yeah. But again, take care of your mental health, and that's the message for this week. Paul, as always, a pleasure, man.
Yes, it was definitely a pleasure, and I'm sure you picked up Otis chiming in there.
I did. I appreciate the
He
support.
kind of waited to the end to get his 2 cents in, but there you go.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, tell Otis I say hello. Paul, thank you again. It was awesome. And appreciate it. So for Paul M. Banks, I am Larry Hawley. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of the Balcony Brew Review, taped on June 29th of 2020 in a very interesting time. Gonna, again, accentuate the positive. And in the final closing, be out there, be well, both mentally and physically. Do what you can to stay positive. Do what you can to be empathetic, and do what you can to listen to others, even if their viewpoints are completely different than yours. It's important to let everyone's situation enter your thoughts, and then enter what you say and the actions you take on a daily basis. So have a wonderful week. Have a wonderful night. And as always, cheers. Take care.